clay is going to the bottom of the lake today. It's been an ordeal. It's about to happen.
Be the right club. Be the right club today. Yes!
Okay, welcome to episode 13, season 2 of the Be the Right Club Today podcast. Gents, what a 24 hours it's been.
Pretty wild.
How are you guys doing? Jamie and Hal are with me here today.
We're doing well. I'm doing well.
Yeah.
Crazy news yesterday.
Yeah.
A lot of unknowns, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next 6 months for sure.
Yep.
Just don't really know what to think right now.
How?
Well, I'm not going to lie, I'm deeply hurt. And I just feel like everything that we worked for and did and what we stood for was thrown to the wind yesterday. And I think what we're going to eventually find out is that the tour got backed into a corner and had no other choice but to do that. And, you know, I hate that we got into that situation. And it doesn't surprise me because Greg Norman has had it out for the PGA Tour for a long time. And, I mean, I've said this on here before, but I'm going to say it again because it's totally the truth. You wouldn't even know who Greg Norman was if it wasn't for the PGA Tour. He'd be chasing sharks in Australia. And, you know, I mean, the saddest part about this is that he and Mickelson have come out the winners in this. I hate it for Tiger and Rory and everybody that stood by the PGA Tour. We're loyal to the PGA Tour. I mean, I felt like I was loyal to the PGA Tour for all those years. And, you know, the model of the PGA Tour was all about charity the whole time. And now all of a sudden, I've never heard Liv mention charity. They talk about profit all the time. And that was definitely mentioned yesterday. This is for profit now. And
Yep. For anyone, in case you've been living under a rock, for anyone who doesn't know what happened, basically yesterday the PGA Tour announced that the Public Investment Fund, the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund by the government there, are going to invest basically in the PGA Tour. What officially is going to happen from what we know, again there's few details about it, but the PGA Tour, the DP World Tour are going to create a separate for-profit LLC which the Public Investment Fund will be funding basically, and then it sounds like the gentleman, what's his name again? Yasser, yeah, he's going to be the chairman of this new LLC. Jay Monahan's going to be CEO, which is an interesting move. And then
wonder how long that's going to last.
What they said yesterday in the CNBC interview was that the PGA Tour and the DP World Tour will still have the majority on the board, but the Saudis will be the Public Investment Fund will be the main investment of capital in that. So that's the official, what we know. The PGA Tour, Jay Monahan did say yesterday, part of the PGA Tour will still remain that 501c6, which is the charity part, and then part of it's going to be put into this for-profit LLC. So, anyway, a lot of business nonsense there, but basically, it sounds like Live Golf maybe won't happen next year. We don't know. Are they going to merge it all together? There's so little details out there.
Sounds like we'll know more in a few weeks, I think.
Yeah. But it sounds like no one really knew about it, Hal. I don't know.
Well, my phone lit up yesterday, and of course I was lighting up a few of the guys that I felt like might know something, and come to find out nobody knew anything, basically, and everybody was caught by surprise by this.
Yeah.
You know, I don't feel sorry for him, but can you imagine being Jay Monahan walking into that meeting yesterday?
Man.
And, I mean, you know, everything he said and everything that he tried to get everybody else to do, it went totally against it. And he even admitted it. He said, I know a lot of people are going to say I'm a hypocrite. He fell on the sword, basically, you know. He admitted I'm a hypocrite, you know. Yeah. And, you know, I don't know. I'm still in awe. I can't believe that this happened.
Yeah, it's hard to talk too much about what maybe people think because it's such fresh news. But you know, someone like Rory who's been defending the tour for a couple of years, I wonder what. Again, we'll probably find out his thoughts today after we record this. But it was unbelievable news, Jamie.
Yeah, it's wild, and I know like we're just kind of guessing right now, but it'll be very interesting to see how it's all organized and structured moving forward.
Yeah.
Imagine being Rory, who really stepped out on a limb.
Yeah.
And no doubt it hurt his game to do that. I mean,
Sure.
because every week everybody's asking him questions about his thoughts on that, you know.
Yeah.
And it used to be all of his thoughts on his own golf game. Now his thoughts on that. Because
Put a bunch of stress on him.
It put a bunch of stress on him, and then for it to steer this direction and go this direction is like.
Yep. It's a lot of details I'm sure will come out in the next few weeks, which we can discuss in our next episode. But for today, Jamie, who have we got on for the interview?
Yeah, excited. We got current PGA Tour player Taylor Moore on today. He's a younger, up-and-coming kind of rising star out there. Those of you who watch a lot of golf probably saw about a month or so ago that he won at the Valspar for his first win. But we got him on today and going to ask him a lot of questions about PGA Tour life and how he practices, how he prepares, and the way he thinks in tournament golf. And definitely going to ask him about what's going on in the world of golf. About all this merger and all that. So it should be a good interview.
Looking forward to getting to know him a little bit.
Yeah.
We have something in common. We're all Razorback.
I feel kind of left out here.
Podcast.
Yeah.
Feel left out with the Razorback crew here, but anyway, we'll bring that interview. We'll be right back after the break, and we'll bring you the interview with Taylor.
All right, Hal.
Cool.
Really excited today about introducing our guest to everyone. He's a good friend of mine from back in my college golf days at Arkansas. We got current PGA Tour player Taylor Moore with us today. Taylor, thanks for coming on. How you doing?
Yeah, doing well. Thanks for having me on, guys. Hal, great to meet you. And Jamie, always good to talk to you. So looking forward to this conversation. And thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah. So Taylor started out, he played a few years on the Korn Ferry Tour, cutting his teeth out there, and finally got to the tour in 2021. Had his first win this year at the Valspar, which was pretty awesome to see. I kind of want to start there, Taylor, and just talk about a little bit about your journey, kind of what you learned from playing a few years on Korn Ferry Tour, getting to the highest level in the world, and now eventually, being a PGA Tour winner. What was the experience like for you? Did you learn more about like a mentality? Was it a mentality thing? Was it something that you found more in your mechanics or technique that you were working on, or just kind of what you found through your journey to get you to the point you're at now?
I think for me, it's a great question. I think for me, though, is more mentality and more the mental side of golf, and really just learning how to play golf, especially at the professional level and what that took. I think physically, and, I played a lot of golf with yourself, over the years. I think physically I've always, been gifted, but I didn't understand how to play golf and play it at the highest level and truly how to be a professional. And I think that's what the Korn Ferry really prepared me to do was learn how to be a pro and learn how to manage my time and learn how to practice and learn how to, play 4 days in a row of golf and 2 to 3 days of practice and, do that 4 or 5, 6 weeks in a row at a time. And so, it took me a few years to really get a system in place and get the mental side of the game down and course management and find a caddy, maybe that I meshed with a little bit better. And then, once all that stuff happened and once that clicked, I earned my way onto the PGA Tour in the fall of 21. And then, had a pretty good rookie year and got myself pretty comfortable out there pretty quick. And then obviously fortunate enough to win in my second year on tour. Like you mentioned this past spring at Valspar.
So Taylor, you mentioned that it took a while to learn how to be a professional. And I'm going to expand on that just a little bit. You know, when you come out of college, someone else is calling the shots for you. And you get the time during the summer months to be able to call your own shots. But you had to become the CEO of your golf game instead of someone else being. And I'll never forget when I turned pro, Raymond Floyd put his arm around me and he said, Hal, he said, you don't know how to make money yet. You know how to play golf. Now, there's a big difference between making money and maximizing what you can do on the golf course than just playing around the golf. And you understand what I'm talking about right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's like driving a car, really. There's a brake, there's an accelerator, and there's a steering wheel. And where I aim this and how aggressive I am could mean life or death for the week. And that's what you're really describing right there.
Yeah.
And it does take a while to learn how to do that. So I'm happy for you that you've conquered that.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it's just, and I think the cool thing about golf is, you know, everybody's time frame to maybe get to the PGA Tour is different, or their success, you know, in the game of golf is different. Took me, you know, I guess 5 full seasons. We had the 2-1 COVID year, but took me 5 years on the Korn Ferry to really grasp that. And, you know, nowadays you're seeing some kids come straight out of school that look so polished and, you know, have success right away on the PGA Tour. And then I played with, you know, a handful of guys that spent 10 years on the Korn Ferry Tour. So it just, you know, everybody's different. Everybody's journey in this game is different. But to Hal's point, like once you realize that you're the CEO of your ship and you really just have to control that and put your, you know, best foot down each and every day. And I think that's very important. That's when it kind of clicked for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, going back to that mentality, was there something very specific in your mental approach or your process that changed from maybe when you got to the tour, or something that just clicked for you that just made you more successful?
For me, I needed to realize that I just had to be where my feet were, and that was on the Korn Ferry. You know, I had some buddies that were having some success on the PGA Tour that I played junior golf and college golf with. And, you know, I needed to get out of the mentality of, man, I want to be out there with them. Why am I not out there with them? And really just focus on being on the Korn Ferry and being the best I could be on the Korn Ferry at that time.
Yeah.
And I hired a mental performance coach to kind of help me and guide me to not only get myself together on the golf course, but off as well, just with structure, right? Like for me, it was big to feel like I was doing the proper things day in and day out, as far as having routines and managing my time and having efficient practices. I used to think being at the golf course for, you know, 12 hours a day was good practice, but I can be out there for 2 hours now and get just as much work in as I maybe did in the past over 12 hours. And so just having that stuff, you know, come to fruition and really just try to be present on the Korn Ferry Tour and realize, hey, I'm here right now and I need to be the best I can be day in and day out on the Korn Ferry Tour. And then, you know, I finished 4th on the points list, which got me to the PGA Tour. But it was kind of just a mind frame shift in that regard. And I think that helped spur me to get my PGA Tour card.
So, Taylor, has your physical game changed any since you've progressed from the Korn Ferry to the regular tour? Is your strength still your strength?
Strength is still my strength, and have gotten much, much better in the short game putting wedging area over the last 3 years. I started working with Josh Gregory. He was the coach at SMU when I was in school, and he's helped quite a few guys on the tour now, you know, Patrick Reed and Max Homa and some guys with their short game and wedging. And he's here in Dallas too. You know, he was out at Merrido Golf Club where I'm at, and we've got a lot of quality work in, and he's been obviously a big asset to me and my team. But yeah, I think that was a weakness of mine, and Jamie probably can attest to that. When I was in school, I think I hit the ball, you know, not the same. I would say I hit it better now, but my strength was definitely my ball striking and driving of the golf ball, you know, since I was a kid, and just really cleaning up the short game and putting and scoring areas has really helped a lot.
Has it changed your thinking on shots? Like, for instance, everybody's got a layup yardage on a par 5 if you don't go for the par 5 and 2. Has it changed your thinking about how you play par 5s, strengthening your short game?
Yeah, definitely. I would say not only that, but also realizing like the difference I feel like in Corn Ferry and the PGA Tour, missing the fairway is very, very penalizing sometimes on tour. And not always trying to go for, maybe the shot that gets you up by the green, but going from the long grass to the short grass, whether it's 120 yards or 100 or 80, and just realizing that I can hit that shot now to 6, 8, 10 feet and give myself a good look at 4 if I happen to be out of position off the tee versus Corn Ferry, where it's like, we don't play in much rough on that tour. You can kind of get something up around the green, give yourself, some space to chip it up that way. And so, yeah, I think getting better, more consistent with the short stuff has definitely helped, and on par 5s as well, like you mentioned.
Well, I can tell you this. It would definitely be a different game if you were hitting from where we were hitting from whenever I was playing. Getting out of the rough and getting back into the where you want to play from. I mean, right. At least you're playing with a shorter club going into the green. Go from you're hitting 7, 8, and 9 irons in there. We're hitting 5 irons and 4 irons out of that stuff at greens. So, right. The game has changed dramatically. I mean, you're only 29 years old. You've seen change in the game just since you've been in it, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I remember one of the first big changes was the groove switch. When I was a junior golfer, going from the U groove to the V groove, that was pretty big. And then, I guess this ball rollback's a pretty big topic, or was up until yesterday. So that was kind of the big talk on tour. So we'll see what happens there. But
I'm curious about something. Jamie tells me you're long. I haven't looked at the stats, but I'm going to take his word for it. How much longer are you now than you were when you were in college?
I would say 15 to 18 yards longer, probably.
So that's in a short period of time. I hope everybody heard that. That's listening out there, because the game has changed, and in this academy where we're at right here, the manufacturers have been pulling the wool over everybody's eyes for a long, long time. And I mean, much longer than you've been alive. And it's all falsehood. This will make you 5 yards longer or whatever it will. They don't include the part, well, your club head speed needs to be this in order for it to do that.
Right.
And, guys like you and these young guys in here can create club head speed. I used to be able to, but mine's going the other way now. We're looking for lightning in a bottle, basically an amateur trying to figure out how to hit it longer. Yeah. And, this is a pet peeve of mine. The manufacturers have cost the consumer billions of dollars by letting the ball do what it's done, because everybody's golf course won't measure up anymore. And everybody's trying to lengthen their golf course to combat 1/1000% of the people playing golf. How about that? We're going to make decisions for you that's going to change the whole game. That doesn't make a lick of sense, because everybody else is paying for it. Whether you know this or not, and people need to hear this. You know who pays your tab? Who pays you every week that you make money? Do you know who it is?
I want to say the PGA Tour, but I feel like that's the wrong answer.
They do. Ultimately, the check, they wire the money into your account, but the consumer pays it because they spectate, they turn the TV on, they do all of that. And I wish somebody would tell the tour that right now, because, I mean, who knows what's going to happen through all of the decisions that were made yesterday. How many people are going to tune out? How many sponsors are going to say, I signed up for a charitable aspect of this, and now it doesn't exist? I mean, I'm yet to hear Liv talk about charity.
Yeah, I know.
And it's talk to y'all every day on the PGA Tour, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, every week. And that's what, like, our Wednesday pro-ams, I mean, it's all sponsors, and they're giving a certain amount of money to play in the pro-am, but a certain percentage of that is going to the charitable initiative that week. So it's interesting. And I think back to the distance thing, though, too. The interesting part for me is, they're making golf courses, like you said, for the small percentage of the game. But anytime they lengthen golf courses, I feel like the pro golfers are going to figure out a way to either one, hit it longer, or two, play the course more efficient. And so they can keep lengthening all they want, but guys are going to continue to bomb it. You look what Bryson did. You look what some of these guys have done within the rules and the regulations. They're going to figure out a way. I think what's fun to look at just in the game of golf is some of the shorter places take a place, like Innisbrook, where I won 9, 10, 11 under a course that's been around for 40 years. Scores are higher there. Scores are higher at Hilton Head. Scores are, good golf course setup and good golf course design. I think it doesn't have to be 7,800 yards to get a score to be 10 under par or 8 under par, make the rough penalizing, make the greens firm, give some guys, some penalty for actually missing greens and hazards and stuff. And that's the proper way to value the golf ball and value, proper ball striking and things like that.
I couldn't agree with you more. So every golf hole is a picture, and it's got a frame around it. If I close the frame in around you, it tightens you up.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I know the feeling. I felt it on the tour forever. I mean, when it does this, guys, no matter how good they are, they feel it. Mm-hmm. When it does this, they also feel that too.
Yeah.
And, I just think the leadership, and yesterday is a great example of it, the leadership of golf is weak. The people making the real decisions don't really understand the game. And would you agree with that, Taylor?
I would. I think on all levels of golf too. And I mean, like the golf ball rollback and some of the decisions with equipment and golf courses, you have a bunch of, 20 handicap former attorneys making decisions for the elite players of the game. And it just doesn't really make sense because it just seems like they don't want our perspective. They want what they think is going to work in their mind. But when they do something like that, the players in the locker room are like, you guys have no idea what's going on. Yeah. What's really going on.
So this is pretty interesting. I was on the policy board in 2000, and Frank Thomas was in charge of USGA making decisions and as far as the ball could go and everything. We had a meeting with him as a policy board, and he told us point blank, I asked him point blank, I said, Frank, can the ball go any further than it's going right now? And he said, maybe a yard or two, but that's it. Never. How about 25, 30 yards further? I mean, that shows you how little they actually knew. And here's the truth. Whatever the USGA does, the manufacturers, because they're making money, they are for profit. I want to throw that out there. The aim is to make money. And that is the new aim for the PGA Tour, is to make money. And when that's the aim, they're going to hit it one way or the other. I mean, Acushnet had to American Brands used to own it. They had to make their percentage for American Brands or they're going to get sold off. And the manufacturers are always a step of the head of the USGA and everybody.
Yeah.
So, it's Titleist. I played a Titleist ball since I was a junior golfer, and they've talked to us over the last 6 months about, the USGA's kind of decision and framework and rolling the ball back. And it's interesting to hear a manufacturer's perspective on the golf ball, not only in the professional, game, but to the amateur, to the normal consumer. There's so many levels and different dynamics of it, but it's an interesting topic for sure. And I just don't understand why you would want to. The game's already hard enough for the amateurs. I don't understand why you would maybe want to do that and roll it back and handcuff them a little bit for the enjoyment of the game.
So I'll caution you against something else here, Taylor. Manufacturers have an agenda with you too. And don't you forget it. So they want you to deliver their message. And that's what they're schooling you on too. And I mean, for sure. I mean, this is scary for me to tell you this, but I'm looking at this through the rearview mirror. And most people don't want to ask questions of people that have already been down that road. I feel it all the time. You're a pawn in their war. And they're going to pay you to be that pawn. And
that's why it's even more important to, have the mindset that we talked about earlier, just being the CEO of my golf game and keeping my head down and worrying about, myself. Yeah. Worrying about myself and my family and those close to me, and really just taking care of my business, week in and week out, and playing the best golf I can be. And I think that's a cool perspective I have about the game too. And Jamie spent enough time with me to know, like, I just love the game of golf and I enjoy getting better at it day in and day out. And to me, this doesn't feel like a job yet. I know there's job aspects and there's, I'm the CEO of Taylor Moore Golf and I totally understand that, but I'm going to go out this afternoon and just try to get better today and enjoy, getting better at golf day in and day out as long as I can. And if that's a 20-year career on the PGA Tour, great. If it ends tomorrow, I gave it my best shot. So that's what I enjoy about golf. And that's the appreciation I have for the game at the end of the day.
Well, I applaud what you just said because that'll keep you there much longer than any other approach would do it. I mean, because
appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, you got to constantly reevaluate where you're at and how you get better, and that's what you basically just said you were doing. And I'll tell you this: I'm sure you got a lot of great people around you, but be very cautious about who's around you because they all got agendas too. And and most of them are based on money.
Money is just money, man. It's not everything.
No, it's not. But
it sure does help a lot of things.
It is what's driving the world right now.
That's what's showing. Yeah.
There's no doubt. Well, tell me about what you guys got going on with the House Sutton Golf Academy. Is it pretty, Jamie? You enjoying it?
Absolutely, yeah.
It's awesome, man.
Loving it here. It's just Jamie and I, Jamie squared. Very lesson. Obviously, we're lesson heavy here. That's what our business is. But we do a little bit of club fitting, but mostly lessons to all levels of players. So yeah, it's been a great change for me to be here. I really enjoyed working here with Jamie and for Hal, and it's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, it's great. I
think one of the things you see a lot of tendencies in the game when you teach in an environment like this. And I mean, it's shaded or it's tainted when you look at the tour because everybody's got a good golf swing. There's little things that can always be improved, but we don't see that sort of thing in here. When you get somebody that's got a really good golf swing in here, it's fun.
Yeah.
Most everybody are a long ways off and we're trying to get them closer. And, there's a good and a bad to that. Sometimes they're a long ways off because they have zero talent. And you're trying to help them become a better player. But it's also fun and gratifying when you do help someone and you see the improvement that they're making.
And there was one thing I did want to talk to you about just for mostly our listeners and our people we teach here. It's like,
sure,
when you're at tournament play, right? I wanted you just talk a little bit about when you fall into real technique heavy and when you're more about like just process and mentality and just playing golf.
I think it kind of structures itself for us in a way. I mean, I think, early in the week, Monday, Tuesdays, I'm either trying to continue to work on what I worked on at home, or I'm trying to, think about maybe over the weekend of the last tournament, what I want to work on. So I think Monday, Tuesdays is the time to be technique kind of driven. And, if you want to feel something different in your swing or work on something in your short game or putting, I think that's the time to do it. And then I kind of utilize the 9-hole pro-ams to really get in game mode and tournament mode and hitting shots and, go through my routines and play golf and try to get the ball in the hole quick. And then, once Thursday rolls around, it's just react mode, right? I mean, I have something that's presented in front of me. I do my routines, my breathing, get myself in the best position possible to execute the shot that's in front of me. And then, move on from there and count them up at the end of the day. And, if I need to go work on something after, I do that. But a lot of times I'm just getting myself ready for the next day. So I think it's kind of set out for us a little bit. I think that would be kind of what you would see across the board, for most guys on the PGA Tour.
That's just what we try to teach. We try to teach that to a lot of our guys that play higher level golf or who do play tournaments at their country club or wherever. Maybe they're playing stuff. One of the hardest things to get through to them is like, hey, you almost got to have this switch where you're like training mode play mode.
Right.
Because a lot of them get out there and it's like a million thoughts and you're never going to be able to execute. But it's
I think too, the amateurs don't realize either that they're playing in a foursome at their club championship and they're worried about beating the people with them.
Right.
I'm not worried about beating Rory McIlroy when I'm with him. I'm worried about beating the golf course that day.
Exactly.
And if my score beats his, great.
Yeah.
It's easy, I think, for amateurs to get caught up in who they're playing with too, because they want to, they want their swing to look better than their player. Or they want to, hit better golf shots, or they want to beat that guy on a certain hole.
They're very self-conscious about everything going around them. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let me ask a question along those lines right there. So you take a swing thought on the tour, I mean, out on the first tee of the U.S. Open, will you take a single swing thought, or will you have a swing thought?
I definitely will have something, but I usually give myself a few, holes, or try to, I give myself 2-3 holes to get into some sort of rhythm. And then if I see, hey, my shots are leaking out right, okay, I know what that is. Or, I overdrew my driver on 2, I just have kind of checkpoints. And a lot of it for me is tempo based. Like my swing's my golf swing. The swing I have on the range warming up from a physical standpoint is going to be the same. But for me, it's more tempo and feeling and rhythm. And, I know if I'm leaking, my kind of a tendency for me right now is I'll kind of hang my long stuff out to the right a little bit as a drawer. And for me, that's just a little too much gas from the top of the golf swing. So I know, okay, on this next one, I'm going to be really, really patient and add the gas as late as I can. And then it'll kind of clean up. And so it's more for me just like checkpoints rather than like one single swing thought.
So trust is a big factor in all that.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely,
we haven't even brought that up yet. But I mean, you've got to take whatever technical thing you worked on Monday and Tuesday and build enough trust into that you can take it onto the golf course. And that's where everybody that we see in here, they struggle with that. They can't. They can do it pretty good on the practice in here, but they don't trust it to happen out there. So talk to everybody about how you deal with that trust.
Going on the golf course as soon as possible and hitting shots. And I think it's one thing to, hit 57 irons on the range on perfect lie and flat, and those last 10 are probably going to be pretty good. But then going out on the golf course and, having a slight right to left lie or left to right or pin on the right, pin on the left, and going to execute a golf shot, how can you calibrate that same feel from the range when you're hitting 7 iron perfect to when you have 180 yards on, the fairway trying to get it close to the pin? I think golf is on the golf course, right, Hal? I mean, you can do all you want on the practice range and you can take all the lessons you need to and have the, technique thoughts that you need to have, but to implement those on the golf course has to be done out there. And so I think a good balance of practice of, instead of spending 2 or 3 hours on the range hitting balls, spend an hour on the range hitting balls, and then try to go get 4, 5, 6 holes in and see how your swing is out there and hitting shots and doing things like that. Just more integrated practice, I think, for the amateurs could maybe benefit them.
Yeah. How much of your time at home when you're practicing is spent like really technique mechanic heavy, even in putting, chipping on the range, compared to, okay, I've done my kind of training piece, now I'm just gonna go play golf and see where I'm at?
Yeah, I think it's, for me, that's where Josh has brought a ton of structure. For me is, I think, if we do an hour putting practice, let's say, we really break it up. 20 minutes is technique driven, 20 minutes is speed driven, and then 20 minutes is competing. Yeah. And so we really try to break up and bring a competition aspect into every part, and that's including wedges and ball striking. So wedges, we'll do a little bit of technique, making sure we're getting the flight we want. Then we go to compete, or we do some distance stuff, 60, 70, 80, do some reps, and then we'll go compete with random numbers. And that translates for us, having the technology that we have nowadays. I know we were talking about that, but that quad and TrackMan and things like that are a huge benefit, because it is a pretty good simulation, on the range, to what you're going to see on the golf course. But really trying to break up each aspect of the game, and not spend an hour on technique, spend 20 minutes on technique and then go compete in whatever capacity, you know, that maybe looks like. I think has been a good recipe for me.
Yeah. I did want to ask you about your win at Valspar. Did you feel like that was coming for you, and how, when you were playing that week, I mean, that trust level must have been through the roof. You know how everybody says I'm in the zone or I'm in the flow, you know, no thought.
Sure.
How were you really feeling there, especially maybe on Sunday?
To be honest with you, I was pretty calm. I was in a really good space. To me, it was another day at the office. I knew I was close to the lead. I'd kind of been around the lead the whole week, and you know, I entered the last day 2 shots back, and you know, 3rd or 4th group from the last, and yeah, I mean, it was really cool to obviously get my first win. I don't really ever remember being in this super big like flow state or in the zone. I just knew I was locked in, and I knew with, you know, 7-8 holes left, I was still a shot or 2 back on a course that's, you know, pretty difficult to finish off. And I think the big thing that stuck out to me that week is just how solid I was from, you know, 7 or 8 feet and in putting. I think I was 62 of 62, and you know, that's a little bit skewed because it, you know, it counts tap ins and 2-footers and things like that. But you know, from 4 to 7 feet, I didn't miss all week, and so I think a lot of times that's, you know, the difference in finishing 25th on tour and winning. And I'd played some good golf, you know, before that. I had 3 top 15s on the West Coast swing before we went to Florida, and you know, made the cut at Bay Hill and Players, and really just had, you know, 1 round that took me out of, you know, maybe a good finish at both of those events. And was really just trying not to get, you know, too frustrated by those rounds, and just really, you know, keep a level head going into Valspar, and knew that my physical game was good. But like we talked about too, just how could I clean some things up and save a shot a day, or, you know, clean up a 9-hole stretch here or there, and was really able to do that and get in a good frame, and, you know, played the last, 7-8 holes in a couple under, and posted 10 under, and was able, you know, fortunate enough to win outright and not have to go to a playoff or anything.
Yeah. 62 of 62 from 4 to 7 feet will get it done.
Well, yes, it usually does. Might not always get it done, but it depends on the rest of your game. But you said something there that I think is really important. You played a lot of really good golf leading up to that. And it's tiny differences. It's even hard to put into words the difference in the player that was finishing high and playing really good golf and then winning. I mean, you defined it as you made 62 out of 62 putts, less than 7 feet. But it's more than that. And putting all that together is tough sometimes. You don't even know what to do it. It just happens. Am I right? Kind of what you feel? You just keep doing the right things, and then one day you find yourself in that position and you walk through the door.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is hard to define, and it's golf is just such an interesting game, right? Because I feel like my preparation at, you know, Bay Hill and Players was just the same as Valspar, and I didn't do anything different. But I think too, that's maybe why it happened when it did, is I didn't change anything really. You know, I just kept knocking on the door, kept my head down, tried to, you know, get in a good mind frame, and really just realize that I'm good enough to win on tour too, and I'm good enough to compete out here, and I'm good enough, you know, on Sunday afternoon to go have a good back nine and post a number if I'm not in the final group, and, you know, see what happens. And at the end of the day, on the PGA Tour, it's a lot of self-belief, and it's a lot of, you know, kind of dog mentality, and I'm good enough to do this, and, you know, nobody's going to be better than me today. And it's a lot of inner self-belief at the end of the day on the PGA Tour. And I think that separates, you know, a lot of great players from good players, from guys that, you know, are maybe back and forth. So that's been good as well.
Well, what you just said is brilliant, because confidence comes and goes, but self-belief always remains.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's right.
I mean, what you just said, you may need to go back and look at this one day, what you just said, because you may have to remind yourself that I am good enough to do this. I had a time in my life where I went really bad and I couldn't depend on anybody. I had to fix it myself. And that boiled straight down to self-belief. It didn't boil down to any knowledge or anything else. It said, I'm going to gut this out and I'm going to do it because I believe in me. And that's what it comes down to. You give this is another word that I'm big on, permission. You gave yourself permission to win a golf tournament because there's a lot that goes along with winning a golf tournament. A lot of responsibility and everything else. And you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
All your friends now believe what you believed all along.
Right.
You made them. I told you I could do it. Now, guess what? They expect you to do it.
Yeah.
And you will feel that too. The day you don't play well, you'll have people say, well, Taylor, what's going on? And you're still doing the same things you were doing.
Yeah. I know. It's funny how sometimes the score or the outcome of a tournament leads to some of that stuff, and internally it's like, I'm good. I'm doing the same things I've been doing. Like it's just it's how it goes sometimes. But no, you're right. You're right, Al. The permission thing is big, and allowing yourself to. I think a lot of these, golf sports psych and things like that is like, don't get in your own way and be in the present, do this and that. Well, how do you do that? Like, what's the actual recipe to do that? Mm-hmm. And there's things you can learn, and there's, behaviors you can do to actually help you do that rather than just, be in the moment or whatever, like I said. So yeah, it's interesting, but it was a cool week for sure.
Well, he was telling me that your dad played baseball at Arkansas, and I'm sure he's a big sports fanatic. And
yes, sir.
So he taught you a lot, I'm sure, about playing sports, and there's so much to learn in being a professional at whatever you're doing. And after talking to you, Taylor, it sounds like you got a really good handle on all of this. So
I appreciate it. I'm trying, and I'll take any and every advice I could get from somebody like yourself who's been there. So,
well, I don't know if there's any direct advice. I mean, I hear you talk, and it spurs me to say something that I felt, I mean, I had the luxury. I lived in a time where I worked a lot with Byron Nelson, and, he never had a specific thought with me. We would sit down and talk, and then I would tell him what I was feeling, and then he would have what he felt,
Sure.
We just like you and I are sharing things right now. You and I felt some of the same things, basically. And, how people respond to those things and how they react to them and what they do about them is different. I mean, we're all different human beings. But, I mean, the one thing I've heard you say several times in this conversation is be where your feet are. There's nothing more important in golf than to be where your feet are. You can't be on the last shot, and you can't be on the next shot. And it's said most of the time, stay in the present. Well, sometimes that people miss that. But if you're just where your feet are at, in your brain, where your feet are at, you'll be fine. And you've said that several times.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I have to remind myself of that constantly out there because it's just easy to do. And I mean, that's why golf is golf. It's easy to think about the 7-iron you just missed, and it's easy to think about, the next shot after I hit this layup on a par 5, and next thing you know, you lay it up in the rough and not in the fairway, right? And so it's just there's a bunch of things like that in the game, professional and amateur level.
It's also hard not following somebody else that's doing something else in their game. They're the CEO of their game, and sharing ideas back and forth sometimes is not the best thing in the world.
No, and to that point, I think that's what I realized when I first got out on tour is, playing with maybe like Matt Kuchar I played with early on, and I actually got to play with Rom early on, and like for 18 holes, they did not give a single crap about what I did and the shots I hit. Now they would say good shot, occasionally or this and that, but they never let themselves get engulfed in anything that I was doing. And that to me was like, man, they are very protective of their space and how they operate. and the golf shots they hit and are intentional about the conversations with their caddies and what they're really trying to do. And like Kuchar's made how much money in his career, and John Rahm is just an absolute stud. And so I think that was, for me early on, I got to see some of that and be like, okay, like those guys operate in a certain way for a reason. And kind of, was another just layer of me, learning how to be professional in a way.
Yep.
Well, we got to ask you this last question just to finish up with you today.
Let's do it.
But because it's the elephant in the room as of yesterday. But what are your thoughts on this Saudi investment in the tours and all the tours merging?
I wish I knew more about it, right? I think the common theme in I think a lot of the current PGA Tour players' feelings is, I think a lot of maybe guys are upset just from the lack of transparency and not knowing that this was going to happen. I don't know enough details about it to actually, tell you, oh, I'm upset about this or I'm upset about that. I think just like when Live Golf started and it broke off and it took some players away from the PGA Tour, my mindset was, you know what, those guys made a decision they felt like was best for them and their families. I have a golf tournament to go get ready for and go compete at, and I'm going to try to take the same approach because it worked for me at that time. And, I got US Open coming up and Travelers the next week, and there's going to be a lot of noise and talking on the range in the locker room. And I think it's an opportunity for me to put my head down and go compete and try to block that out as much as I can. But I would like to sit here and tell you that I think it's going to be good for the game of golf in the long term to have all the best players in the world competing, hopefully against each other in 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever that looks like. But there's just not enough for me right now, black and white, to really have a feeling on it. So yeah, just too many unknowns. So I don't know.
All right, Hal.
Hal knows more about it than I do.
Thoughts.
Well, I mean, I like you don't know enough of the details to really be able to voice my honest opinion on this. But I do know that the model of the PGA Tour for many, many years until yesterday was built around the model of charity. And it's talked about every day on the PGA Tour, and it has been for the last 40 some odd years.
Right.
It's pridefully talking about how much charity has been the winner. And yesterday it became for profit. And I will tell you this, and for everybody that's listening out there, I spent 6 years on the policy board. I always felt like I didn't know everything. I always felt like there was something going on that I didn't know about. And it bothered me. I was on the policy board when Tiger said F-U-C-K the first time on national TV. And I asked the next board meeting, at the executive committee meeting, I asked, how much did he get fined? And they looked at me and said, we don't divulge any of that. And I looked around like this and I said, I thought this was the board. I thought we were supposed to know everything. And Vic Gansey, who was chairman of the board of Hearst Corporation, said, it doesn't do any good to get our dirty laundry out into the public. And I said, I need to be validated because I've been walking and adhering to what everybody had demanded us do, trying to build the reputation of the PGA Tour. And all of a sudden it got torn down, and we're going to let this go on with no consequences. I never heard another word about it or anything else. So when people tell me that the player directors know everything that's going on, they don't. And I'm not sure the independent directors probably do. I always got the feeling they knew a lot more than we did. And so I guess what I'm saying is there'll be more to come out.
Yeah, there will be. There will be. It's interesting that, guys that have been very close to the situation and players that have been close to the situation, Rory and Tiger didn't know. They found out 15, 20 minutes before it was announced. It's wild. I hope we get the real story someday, but we'll wait until that day happens, I guess.
Well, I think we should close this by first of all, I want to say thank you for being on, Taylor. It's really a pleasure to get to know you. And, we have something in common. We're both Razorback fans.
I love it.
And I'm a fan because you got your act together. It's easy to tell that you do. And I'm pulling for you. And I think we need to close with this. We both love golf. Everybody in this podcast right now loves golf. That's why we do the podcast, is because we love golf and we want to give people a little bit more insight than they would normally get. And then the second thing is we're all golfers and hope for the best, and we want the game to always be the winner. No name, including Tiger Woods. I played a lot with Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods. And, neither one of them are bigger than the game itself. Sometimes we want to put people on a pedestal that they're bigger than the game, but they're not. The game needs to be the winner. And I hope in this case, with what just happened yesterday, that it's good for the game in some sort of way.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the game of golf is bigger than, any tour. And it's the only game in the world where, amateurs and professionals can go out, compete together day in and day out. And so it's just such a cool game. And, thanks so much, guys, for having me on. It's been awesome to have this conversation, and Hal, enjoyed getting to meet you, and Jamie, always good catching up.
Man.
And let me know if you guys ever need anything in the future or want me to come down and help out for a day. Always ready to do that. So
we appreciate your time, man. Really, as a close friend of yours, I'm really proud to see what you've done, and it's awesome to see you get a win and just play well the rest of the year, man.
Go get number 2.
Yes, sir. Number 2 coming up.
All right, good luck next week.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you soon. See ya.